On April 25, 2015, I woke up and, as my habit is, I picked up my iPad to read the news. The big headline on my screen that morning was that there had been a strong earthquake in Nepal. The quake had registered 7.8 on the Richter scale. It had caused a lot of damage and deaths. My heart went out to the people who were suffering and in crisis. Little did I know that a few hours later I would be asked to go and be a part of an emergency response team. I am a photographer and video producer, and it would be my responsibility to go in with the emergency teams and document the devastation and the emergency relief being conducted by ADRA, the organization that I work for. I spent the next 3 weeks traveling around Nepal, meeting people who had lost everything, including loved ones. It was quite the experience. I must admit that it was a little overwhelming at times, especially the aftershocks that shook the small hotel where I was editing my video reports. One was so strong that I feared that it would bring the whole building down that I was in. While I was there, I made an observation that made me stop and think about my own personal belief system, my own worldview. Was my belief system ready for the earthquakes and storms that may come into my life? Please stay with us as we think about all the things that go into building a strong personal belief system. As I toured around Nepal, especially some of the communities of Kathmandu, the one thing that really stood out in my mind was how the earthquake had brought some buildings right down to the ground, while hardly doing any damage to the buildings right next to them. It really brought home to me the absolute importance of using quality building materials and following strict building codes that use the plans and blueprints of a qualified architectural engineer. This is often the case. An earthquake has a way of revealing those buildings where compromises were made, corners were cut, cheaper materials used. It also demonstrates the extreme importance of laying a good foundation. Use poor quality materials for your foundation, and the whole building could easily collapse when stressed. But in the case of Nepal, it was actually more than design, more than building codes, more than the quality of the materials used in construction, or even having a good foundation. Some very well-designed, high-quality buildings collapsed as well. As these were examined, it was determined that the biggest problem was what the foundation itself was built on. The city of Kathmandu was built on the deposits of an ancient riverbed. And because of the composition of the soil, or the way that the sand and the rocks had been laid down, where it was leaving a lot of space in between the rocks, was what had caused such a problem in Kathmandu. The earthquake, even though it was 80 kilometers from Kathmandu, it really shook the structures of Kathmandu much more than the buildings right at the epicenter of the quake. Depending on what was under the foundation of the buildings, or what kind of care had been taken to prepare the building site, compacting the soil, filling in the spaces between the rocks, before laying the foundation, in some cases made the entire building vulnerable. There were pockets of the city where buildings collapsed almost instantly. Now, I am not an architect or a building contractor. I don't build buildings. But I have spent a lot of time in my life building a structure of personal beliefs. We all have. Ever since we were toddlers, our minds have been shaped by our parents, by our caregivers, our teachers, our societies. The philosophers, writers, religious leaders, scientists, and even the entertainment industry of our culture have been shaping our worldview. The person that we have become has been strongly influenced by so many elements in our environment. Everything that we have been exposed to, everything that we have been influenced by over the years, makes up the soil underneath the structure of our personal belief system. It has been instrumental on laying the groundwork of our foundation, the foundation of our whole understanding. As we stop and think about it, the quality of our personal belief system is deeply dependent on the materials that we have used. Can we be sure that we have built our belief system, our worldview, on good, solid soil, starting with a good foundation, and that we have always used high-quality building bricks, strong mortar, the best steel beams, strongly reinforced concrete? How will our personal belief system hold up in a personal crisis? If an earthquake should strike our personal world, how would we hold up? Most people never stop to think about this until they are facing a devastating crisis. People may say, "Oh yes, I believe in God." But if that faith is not built on a solid foundation, using quality materials in the structure, even a small earthquake can make the individual give up his belief and curse God. Some might say, "Oh yes, I believe that God created this world. I learned all about it at Sunday school. The 6 days of creation." But then, when they find themselves in Biology 101 at a state university, if their belief system was not built on a solid foundation, if they never took the time to build a more solid foundation than a child's Sunday school class with flannel cutouts of the 6 days of creation, they can very quickly find their worldview crashing around them. By the end of the semester, they may go back to their hometown declaring themselves to be atheists. What I would like to do here at Worldviews is take a close look at some of the ideas that we have built our lives on, and together examine the integrity of the soil, the strength of the foundation, the quality of the materials that were used. I would like for us to determine together if our personal belief system is ready for the earthquakes to come. It may be that as we take a close look at our personal structure, there may be some things that we could do to strengthen and reinforce our belief system. Fill in some cracks, erect more supporting beams, some pillars of faith that will help us be more ready for the storm. I recognize that this will mean something different for everyone. As students join us from all over the world, people will be coming with a wide variety of worldviews, all at various stages of construction. And we can never underestimate the strong convictions that people will have that their structure is rock solid. This is natural. We all have a strong cultural bias to believe that the way we view the world is the best. I often think if I had been born into a family in, say, Afghanistan, I would probably have a much different worldview than I have today. And I would no doubt believe that it is a healthy and positive worldview. That is to be expected. As we will learn in our next lesson, everyone believes that their worldview is the best. If they didn't, they would probably change their worldview. Everyone thinks that their philosophy explains things best. Their religion is the truth, or their scientific theory best explains the cosmos or the development of life. Most believe that their society has discovered the best solutions for a happy life. Their sports team is the best. Their foods are the best. Their manufactured goods are the best. Their mom's cooking is the best. It's just the way we are wired to think. But for the purposes of our studies together, I would like for us to, as much as possible, put away our personal biases so that we can objectively consider some of the biggest proposals that come in from different cultures around the world and determine together the strengths and weaknesses of these proposals and whether or not they look like good bricks for the construction of our own personal worldview. One that will stand the test of time and personal earthquakes. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you back here often. If you like the idea of this kind of study, I invite you to subscribe and click on the little bell there so that you'll get notified each time we release a new lesson. So long for now, and we'll see you next time on Worldviews. Go out and do something nice for someone else.